behalf of a brand new grassroots coalition that we're calling, as Jamie said, Fund Our Communities, Bring the War Dollars Home, I want to thank the legislators here who have signed this wonderful letter. We currently have 40 organizations in this coalition, and we're growing by leaps and bounds. This coalition includes environmental groups, healthcare advocates, civil rights organizations, unions, and many others. And our coalition is calling for two things. One, major reductions in military spending, and two, immediate and significant increases in domestic spending. And I want to talk very briefly about each of these separately. So let's begin with military spending. When given the facts, the American public says, we must dramatically cut military spending. For example, the University of Maryland on March 3rd released a report of a national poll that they had undertaken. It found that a majority of Americans want the military budget cut by a substantial amount, on average by 18% this year. Democrats and independents called for a much greater series of cuts. So our coalition's demand to substantially cut the military budget actually represents the mainstream view in America today. As you can see from our chart over there that on the right, that compares military spending to that of other countries. We spend an absurdly high amount of money on the military, more than 9 times what China spends, more than all the other major powers combined, more than during the Cold War, more than during the Vietnam War, more than in any year since 1945. And our main enemy is somebody that's hiding in a cave. There are plenty of places to cut military spending, and we can do so without reducing our security. For example, we can roll back the network of approximately 1,000 military bases in other countries. We can dramatically cut our arsenal of weapon systems that were devised for conventional opponents, such as the Soviet Union, a type of opponent that we no longer have. We can substantially reduce our stockpile of nuclear weapons. We believe that cuts such as these would actually enhance our security. But when cuts to the military budget are made, we don't want them to come from the pay and benefits of servicemen and veterans. We don't want them to come from the health care of servicemen and women and veterans, or from the protective gear of active duty personnel. There are plenty of other places to cut the military budget. The current fiscal crisis of our country derives in part from decades of ever-escalating military expenditures. Meanwhile, the rest of our society is in serious decline, and in many places workers are being scapegoated for problems that are not of their making. Dramatically cutting military spending would enable us to reprogram money into state and community needs. Which brings us to the second demand of our coalition, investment in our people and in our country. This too is a mainstream view. For example, the University of Maryland study that I cited earlier found that the public favors more spending, not less, on social goods like job training, education, and pollution control. But if you look at this chart over here, showing how the federal government allocates discretionary spending, you can see that we're not doing what the public wants. We live in a rich country and in a rich state. So why do we have 133,000 children in poverty in Maryland? Why do almost 3/4 people in Maryland have no health insurance? Why are our bridges in such disrepair? Why can we not protect our environment? Why are we making cuts in Maryland to public health and schools and libraries and parks when we need and want these services? The total deficit of all the states together is about $130 billion. This year we will spend close to that amount just in Iraq and Afghanistan for wars that I think we never should have started. A recent Gallup poll found that 76% of Americans want us out of Afghanistan, but the Pentagon is talking about an extended war in that country for several more years that will continue to siphon off resources that are needed at home. So our coalition calls for a reprioritization of public funding, one that represents the values of the people of this country rather than the interests of the military-industrial complex.